about Sophie. Not my character Sophie, but my real life past co-worker Sophie, who I had a thing for. So, around about 2009, when I was seeing Jess, you've seen the video about Jess by now, I was working in the Whole Food store for my parents, and one of our co-workers who worked in the Whole Food store, we had two. They worked in the one that I worked at, Sally, who turned out to be a bitch. She left that Whole Food store. I don't know if she left, she might have left the business completely, or she might have just left that particular Whole Food store and continued working in our other shop, more south. Somewhere around there, my mum decided she needed to get someone in new to help cover the days. There was a girl in town who was looking for a job called Sophie, and mum recruited this girl Sophie, said she was going to be turning up in a week or so or something, and so there was a mystery new worker coming to work in our shop. We didn't do that very often in our shop. It's very rare for my parents, especially my dad, to recruit new staff members, even though it would help him quite a lot if he did. He is very reluctant to do that. So it was 2009-ish. I was seeing Jess, you know, she was like almost a girlfriend to me at the time, and so I was talking to her like, oh, there's probably a new co-worker coming in soon. She's a girl. I don't want to get involved. She's probably some idiot, stuck-up teen. For some reason I was imagining like a fat, black-haired goth woman coming in. I don't know why. Someone like that who'd be a brat and stuck up, and you know, I don't know why my head jumped to that. Then it came the day when she showed up, and she was a lot more nice looking than I thought. I was like, okay, this is going to be something I wasn't expecting. And so in tandem with me talking to Jess on chat programs on the internet every night, trying to get closer to her, I had this added unusual thing where there was a cute girl coming into work now, and I think for the first few times she worked, for the first month or so, we weren't like put together. We weren't ever on the same shifts. Like, she was working with mum on certain days, and then I was working alone on the other days. And then gradually after the second month, like, she was put on shifts with me, and I, like, every now and then, I think every Thursday at first, I would be working with her. And even though I was working there first and I knew everything that was going on in the shop, it wasn't like I was her superior on the shop floor or anything, telling her to do stuff. Van, cyclist. Of course, I did tell her how to do things and what things were. As a matter of course, I think she stayed working in the business for 2 years, basically. And we became acquainted, and from my perspective we became friends, although from her perspective she was very cold and didn't want to form attachments, and was saying something like, I don't keep friends, which was a lie in hindsight, because she was seeing various friends and stuff in the background. So she formed this cold front sometimes. Sometimes she was like this nerdy, confused girl. I like that temperament, where she didn't quite know what was going on and she needed help and she was confused about how to do things. Other times she put on this cold front and didn't want any associations and wanted to be purely 100% work focused, and like trying to be, you know, they call it a boss girl or something these days? What's the word? There's like an annoying modern word floating around, like boss woman or boss girl or boss chick or something, which is really annoying. And she wanted to be one of them, sort of like workaholic and then cold and detached and only there to do work and doesn't want to form any attachments and doesn't want to be social. And then there was this other side to her, which was the best side, which was her humour, like her funny side, her silly side, her playful sort of side. Car. This is obviously not the best place to do this. It's not really a main road or anything, but... Okay, how am I going to get anything done? Yes, so the best side about her, which connected with me really well, with her humorous side. She was very funny when she was with me. Like, she was comedic, kind of silly comedy side would come out. And I think we became friends in my mind, although, you know, she never wanted to think of it as friends because she had this cold side of her personality. It was like, oh no, I don't have friends. I don't have the luxury of friends, sort of thing. I don't keep them. Like, what are you talking about? Which was her lie. But yeah, she had that side which prevented her from saying that we were having a good time, or that we were close, or that we were laughing together. Like, she couldn't admit to herself and to me that we were having fun and that we were having a good time and that it was hilarious when we hung out together. She just couldn't let herself say openly that that's what was happening. And so we hung out together while we were at work, and when she wasn't being all stern and work focused, sometimes she was listening to me rant about my mum, because my mum was just absolutely intolerable at the time. She was like anger management, childish. She couldn't get around her own tendency to just get kind of triggered and offended at anything and everything, which has reached its logical conclusion now, as you may know if you've listened to my second channel vlogs. So I would vent to Sophie about how my mum would always just get angry at nothing, and how I couldn't speak even the mildest, most inoffensive sentence, or I couldn't say one word or one small sentence or anything at all to my mum without her blowing up in a rage, by making it as if I'd said something to insult her or something. Like, the ultimate like insult had happened or something, where I was just like, can I pick up this item? I want a drink. I'm just gonna go over here. It'll be like, what? Ah! Like, that's my mum for a long time. That was just my mum. If you talk to her, you were just going to receive anger. And it was completely random, because most of the time she would be like that, but then on some days she would be mellow and she would be talking normally, and you'd think, oh, maybe there's hope for her. Maybe there's hope for her to be calm and kind and normal and nice and speak to you on the level of a human. And then the volcano would just erupt the next day, and would keep doing so for several days, like, where you just couldn't talk to her anymore. So it was a minefield dealing with her. And yeah, I talked to Sophie about that at the time. Sophie was saying the business gets very quiet quite a lot, because it was a little whole food business. You'd mainly serve like old people and mothers and eccentrics. You wouldn't really serve anyone young, to be honest. It'd be very rare for you to serve like a kid or a teenager or a young adult. It wouldn't be those sorts of people who came in. And it wasn't like a super bustling, it wasn't like a mini supermarket or anything. It'd be like stretches where you wouldn't serve anyone for like half an hour or something. And she said, what do you do on these long stretches, like these boring bits where nothing's happening? I was just like, well, I kind of draw. If there's stuff on the shelf to be brought forward, I go around the shop and do that. You can't do much else except wait for a customer or make your own fun. And so I guess she'd bring in a book or a magazine, and she'd kind of spout little nuggets of observations and things she'd found, or like what's going on at the moment, or, oh, Tom, there's this, have you heard the news of this that was happening? Or, hey, did you know about this? Or she'd bring up like information about something in the world she knew about, like an animal or something, or a place she'd been to, or an experience she'd had. And then other times it was, yeah, just goofing off really. Like, I learned she had a brother who she quite liked being with, but sometimes he called her like Soph the Oaf, and as a result she didn't like being called Soph as a nickname. She was kind of like a delicate fairy type thing. She had toffee coloured short hair. It came to above the shoulders. She often wore lipstick. She often like wore clothes with kind of puffy shoulder bits on them, sort of thing. She wore hippie-ish colours of clothes, like multicolours and greens and lavender kind of colours. Long skirts often, but she was very dainty. She was very delicate, like a fragile fairy. She had, you can see I've got skinny wrists and hands and arms. She had way skinnier kind of wrists and hands, so they're very kind of delicate and spidery, I guess. She's like picking up items from the shelves with these long fingers, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an animal that has like long reaching fingers, like an eye or something, you know. She'd just pick up an item and examine it in these hands. She was very into her sewing. I think she sewed various things, and I'd always ask her about how her sewing's going. She made, like, I don't know, she was trying to make like a bag or a wallet at the time, or she was trying to sew up her clothes. So she started bringing her sewing in as some sort of hobby thing to pass the hours for when it got quiet and we didn't have customers or didn't have an order to do or anything. And she sewed patchwork quilts, and she sewed little teddy animals, and yeah, she was very into that, and it kind of got me interested in it to the point where now I kind of sew up my own like patches. If I get a hole in my trousers or something, I'm more likely to want to prolong my use of them by sewing up that hole, whereas before maybe I would have just thrown it out. She had a kind of environmentalist streak, which at the time wasn't a problem because we didn't, back then, it was a little too early to see, you know, feminism coming in and taking over everything. So the whole leftist and rightist thing wasn't really in my mind in any sort of a way. It was 2009. So that shit was starting to come in around 2009 and 2010, starting to burst into the universities and stuff. But it was post-uni for me, and I'd left uni before that took over the schools and stuff. So, and I wasn't really detecting it at the time. I had to retrospectively look back and find out that that was happening when it reached like 2016 and 2017, and we started really noticing this shit, like, whoa, what is this? This is everywhere. But yeah, so she had, which in hindsight would be a leftist streak, environmentalist leaning tendencies. She's all about recycling and sustainability and all this, but she didn't bring it up a ton. She didn't let it dominate her entire life. It was just in the background there. She did mention at one point, like, her meeting a celebrity thing was to be sat at a dinner table at one point with Ed Miliband, as in the fucking Labour MP. I'm just like, okay, how the fuck did that happen, first of all? And secondly, I hope you're not saying that because you like him or you idolise him or anything, because he was like this creepy government side character at the time, and obviously in hindsight a complete commie. And there's other things, like later on I learnt something I agree with her dad on. Her dad didn't like cars and wished no cars existed on the roads at all, and that you can't see the point in them. And in a way I kind of agree, especially after, you know, my cats have died to the road. And, you know, I didn't need this car to get the job. The job asked that I had a car before it would recruit me, even though I could get to the job on buses and things. So, yeah, I kind of don't like cars, even though paradoxically these days I'm driving around everywhere in the cars and doing little car vlogs and things. I don't actually like them as a concept. So I kind of agreed with her dad on that, even though that's slightly a leftist kind of viewpoint. The other thing is, yeah, her mum read The Guardian. Her mum, after Sophie left work in the end, her mum came in and replaced her until we closed as the other staff member in the shop besides me and mum. But yeah, none of the super terrible leftist tendencies came out until sort of near the end, because she was into therapy. Leftists are notoriously into therapy and psychiatry and counsellors and all this. Counsellors, not counsellors, although they're probably into both, to be fair. And yeah, at one point, like, Mum and me we were all in the shop together, me, Mum and Sophie, and we're closing the shop and we're about to go home. Mum was going to drive me home in her car, and she decided she would drive Sophie home. And it was a sunny day with like breeze blowing around, and I sat in the back of the car and Mum drove Sophie through the town to where she lives. And at that point I just like noticed like she had really amazing, she was wearing lovely clothes that day, like white, like a trad dress kind of thing, you know, picnicky, traditionalist, housewifey kind of a dress. And she had beautiful hair that was toffee-ish, but it was like blonde in the sunshine. It was catching the light and the breeze and flapping around her, and she had beautiful brown eyes. There's one thing, you know, I love brown eyes. I don't really get to see them that much up close, as weird as that sounds, but, you know, girls with deep pools of brown eyes or hazel, I've had very few opportunities to see that, and every time I have, especially on like a blonde girl, I'm like, wow, okay, that stands out a lot. And then the sunshine does things to brown eyes to make them go like orange and yellow and stuff. It's very cool. And yeah, that driving her back home that day kind of caught my attention quite a lot, and I did a painting of it. I don't know how accurate I got it to the actual memory, but it was sort of in the region. I'll maybe put the painting up on screen, a little painting of her in that car ride. We just had a fun, I guess I always said to Jess, like, you don't have to worry about this is just a friendship. She's a silly little girl. I don't trust her. I think she's got some dumb ideas in her head. I always called her an eco warrior. Yeah, I thought, I'm not going to get that close to Sophie. I'm just gonna be friends with her, even though she doesn't want to call it friends. I'll just be friends. Like, I'm not going to go falling in love with her, especially while I'm near Jess or anything like that. But, you know, as time went on, nearer the end, and then I split up with Jess, or Jess split up with me rather, and I realised, oh, actually, you know, I kind of do have a thing for Sophie. I have been rather attracted to her this whole time. And then she went on like a trip to America. Oh, as an aside, she had her legs were attractive in this weird way, they're not like deformed legs or something, but like, I think she regarded it as some sort of disability or some sort of thing that she shouldn't have with her body. Was like her knees faced inward with her legs, so she had these kind of wonky legs where her thighs would go down, then her knees would face inward, and her feet would, her calves would come out, and her toes would face inward. It had that weird shape to it, which was very distinctive to me and instantly recognisable. But I found it attractive, and I didn't have a problem with it. But I think she did. Anyway, yeah, she wanted to go on a trip to America. I was like, oh, you're gonna come back to us though, right? You're gonna come back to work after you still see me. You're gonna give me regular like emails and tell me about how your trip's going. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she wanted to go to like visit every state, I think. I don't know if she managed that, because visiting every state in America, even though you say it to yourself like it's something you'd want to do, that would actually be really difficult, because America's so huge and each state is so huge. Some states like Texas could fit the entirety of the UK inside them with room to spare. You know, these places are massive, and to jump between every single one in a limited amount of time. I think she was using Greyhound coaches, which I'm not sure if they're still around. They're not around in Canada anymore, I found out recently, so that's interesting. After lockdown, so read into that what you may. But yeah, she was using these Greyhound buses to go between states, and she was like trying to meet as many people as she could to just stay in their house. Or there's this organization or something called WWOOFers, which is some long acronym, I think, stands for like organic farming in some way, where you go to a farm and you'd like stay on the farm and work on the farm for these people. So it's kind of a commune thing. She was looking for jumping between communes and jumping between staying at random American people's houses that she'd met just by asking around online, which was again quite a leftist thing, to be over trusting of people in other countries, strangers, just like overly trusting with random people in foreign countries, which notoriously, like, the right wing did like exposés on all sorts of leftist tourists who left America or left Europe or left England to go to countries like Iraq or Syria, Morocco, or places kind of like that, and they just got killed as a result of them being overly trusting with foreign people and thinking that everything would be fine when they got there and they wouldn't have to worry or guard themselves. So she kind of had that in her mind. But this was America, so I mean, I didn't feel like worried for her in that way just because she was going to America. She wasn't like, oh, Tom, I'm off to Iraq, or I'm gonna go to North Africa, like Tunisia or something, for a bit. Which I did worry about one of my future girlfriends, Natalie, with, because she went to Morocco at one point, and I was like, oh, okay, be careful. But yeah, it was kind of exciting. There was lots of build up to it. Sophie was talking about her America trip for a long time before she actually went and did it. She must have seen a lot of states, but I don't think she saw all states. I guess her plan worked, but the thing is, she didn't really tell us that much. She gave us a couple of emails like, oh, it's nice, I'm here, it's nice here. Just tiny little details. I was there today in this state, and now I'm going to be in that state tomorrow, and then you wouldn't hear from her for like months. And then she'd say a little tiny something like, oh yeah, it's been going well, blah blah blah. And I was like, I was really disappointed that she wasn't like talking more openly to us about where she was and what she was doing. I think I got in some sort of pact with her family where I needed a place. I wanted a place to stay away from my parents, like I did at uni. And while Sophie was away, her room was free, and Sophie said, well, why don't you stay in my room with my family for a few months while I'm away? And so I did. I moved into her mother Janie's house, and it was her, Janie, the mother, and then Will, I think, her brother, who didn't really get to see that much of at all. And then I was in her house, in her room, and I had a goldfish to look after that she'd left behind, which was a bit of a weird, pointless pet. I'm not sure why she kept it. And so one of the reasons I agreed to stay in a house while she'd gone off to America is because I thought we were good friends, and I wanted to become closer to her. I wanted to become a lot closer friend, and maybe something more if I could. And I just thought, hey, maybe if I get to know her family better by living in the house, and then she can give me emails of how America trip's going, then when she gets back, we'll all be a lot closer. It didn't really work out that way because she was just very uncommunicative while she was on her trip. And when she came back, she was very kind of cold and didn't really talk to us that much. I think it was around about then that she decided she wanted to leave our family business and stop working there and work at a clothing store over the road. Or she said she pinned down like 5 jobs at one point after she left. I was like, what? One of the jobs was like selling tickets every now and then in the summer at a festival. One of them was working a clothing store over the road, and I don't know what the other 3 jobs were meant to be. But yeah, she just got very cold and distant after that. And you know, I tried to keep communication over. I tried to keep our friendship going. I tried to say, look, you know, we should meet up, we should hang out, go places. Because at one point, it wasn't like May, where, of course May came a lot later than this, but it wasn't like May where she asked me out on a date, but it was kind of like that. There was kind of a situation. It wasn't a date, it was just like, do you want to hang out in the park? Which I guess is kind of a date, but not really. This was before the America thing. She said, do you want to hang out in the park? Yeah, I thought that was kind of cute. At the time, after uni, I'd only really travelled I hadn't really travelled in a normal way like other people do. Like, I'd always used my parents to get places back then, and I hadn't, and I'd given up on driving lessons a while back. And after uni, like at uni, I would have solely taken buses around to get around Bristol Centre and taken trains to get back home to visit my parents, and stayed on like solid bus routes that I knew would take me home from the train station. But I hadn't really used buses and trains in many other ways. I think I occasionally used a bus to get to Plymouth city centre or to Horrobridge, but I'd never like really used them to get around. And yeah, this date thing she'd organised just made me think, okay, I'm going to start using these buses more and trying to find out what buses go where and what the timetables are, so I can go to meet her in Exeter. At one point she said, "Do you want to come to Exeter?" And I said, "I think none of the buses, I'm not sure, but it looks like none of the buses go there at the right times." And she was like, okay. But yeah, this time she'd asked me for a picnic in Oakhampton, and I looked on the buses, I was like, I can just about get there to have a picnic. And so I took drinks and sunglasses and stuff and a book, I think. And she laid down a quilt thing in the park. It was like a patchwork quilt thing, and she was sewing it slowly over time. And she's like, okay, we'll just sit on the grass here and hang out and talk, and I'll do my sewing and try and do this patchwork quilt, and you hang out, we'll just hang out and talk. And it was cool. It was kind of like a date, I suppose. And I have a couple of photos from it, actually. I'll give you a photo or two of that day if I got them. And it was a really lovely little day out, and I felt good about it. I told her I enjoyed myself, and she never asked anything of the like again. And when I asked her if she wanted to go places, she said no. So yeah, it was just this one-off occasion where there was nothing like it after that. And yeah, it's kind of sad, because I thought, that gave me the hope that it could have been something a lot better if she'd just let me in or admitted that we were having fun when we were together. And then at one point, like before she was leaving work with us, with my family, there was some occasion, it might have been some occasion, like maybe it was her birthday or maybe it was Christmas or something like that, and she was going to be leaving work at some point. And after our shift ended, I gave her a hug. It kind of came out of the blue, and I think she was a little bit surprised by it. I just wanted to, give her a nice warm hug to say, I like you and I wish you weren't going and all this. I'm gonna miss you. Because of my problems with my mum and her being angry all the time, just after she left work. Again, it's really hard to remember the exact chronology of how this happened. She was saying because I got depression and anxiety and I was dealing with my mum all the time, that I should go and see a therapist or a counsellor, and that she could recommend a therapist for me to see, and also that she could help me get a flat by giving references or something, I can't remember what it was. She had something in her mind to help me get a flat in a place that I wasn't even planning on getting a flat, so I don't know why she was saying that to me. But yeah, when she suggested the therapy thing, it just made me really angry. It's as if she was telling me to see a shrink or something, like you got mental problems, you should get them checked out at a psychologist or something. It was that was my reaction to it, was I thought she was saying that about me. And I just got terribly, I guess, offended at the time. Back when I did get offended at things, I was just like, I can't fucking believe you're leaving, and one of the last things you're going to say to me is like, go see a counsellor or a therapist or something to work out your mental problems. Like, she didn't phrase it that way, of course, but I saw something in the way she was phrasing it, and the way she was like being cold and distant all the while. Yeah, I just hated the way she left things in that way. Just hated that, like, she couldn't acknowledge our friendship, she couldn't stay friends, she couldn't keep seeing me, kept saying cold things like, I don't want any friends, I just want to be focused on work only. And yeah, on top of it all, she's like, oh, I saw a therapist once, it's good, maybe you should see a therapist too. I'm like, fuck you, just fuck you. What? I don't need a therapist, I need just good people who surround me as my friends. And you're not being that when you could have been that, and you're just out of here now, aren't you? And it's just like, why are you putting on this cold front? It's completely unnecessary when we got along so well during that time. And yeah, this is a very difficult vlog to make in this place because cars keep buzzing up and down this hill like mad, and it's every time one comes it's so distracting. And the GoPro keeps overheating even though it's not that hot today. So it's a pain in the ass to make this. That's as brief as I could make it. That's how things were with me and Sophie. She was a girl I got close to in my life, who started off as a very funny friend and became someone who I was very attracted to, but she didn't want any attachments. Yeah, if you managed to put up with this or gain something from it, thank you for watching.